Hey there everybody, welcome to Marathon Music Gym. This is the very first video in a series of music theory lesson videos that is oriented for beginners, and really it's for anybody that has some questions about the fundamentals of music theory. So even if you've had some training before, you maybe play an instrument, this is really, we're not going to look much at reading in this particular video series, that is reading music. We're going to dedicate our time very much to the fundamental points of how music theory is built and how reading music is eventually related to how all these things kind of come together. So really this is for anybody. You don't even need to have an instrument around you. You can do this with your voice. I'm going to end up using the keyboard interface as the primary means of communicating a lot of these things because it is probably the most clear when it comes to an instrument interface. But suffice to say, you don't need an instrument, and if you have any interest in music at all, even if you're just a listener, this will probably illuminate your understanding of what you're hearing. And my hope is that you're able to take this information and apply it to your instrument, even just apply it to your hearing. As you hear music on the radio, you'll see a lot of these patterns kind of start to happen. So let's get started. So what we're looking at here is the piano keyboard interface. So the first thing I want to point out here, and this is probably, this might not be news to you, if you're looking at this. The keyboard interface is segmented into these two sections. So there's this one section of 3 white notes, right? 1, 2, and 3, and 2 black notes. And then we have this other section of 3 black notes, 2, 3, and 4 white notes. So this just repeats itself over and over. There are 88 keys on the keyboard, so this repeats itself, I think, 7 or 8 times, give or take. And you can see that that is just the repeating pattern up and down the keyboard. So what we're going to look at are the note names. And this is more than likely one of the first things you would learn if you were looking at piano lessons or any of that kind of thing. You'd want to start figuring out, your landmarks, so to speak. So the letter names that we use in music, very simple. They just use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, the English alphabet anyway. And it starts at A. And you can see that A happens to be the 3rd white note in this particular grouping, right, of 4 white notes, this area here. And from there, every white note is just labeled as they would show up in the alphabet. So by the time you get to the next 3rd white note in this grouping, you end up back at A. So we go from G to A right there. It just turns back over. So we're not going to look quite yet at the black notes. Of course, they're very important notes, but we're going to get there in time. I'll be able to use just this basic bit of information to talk about what we need to today. So let me keep writing a few more of these out. So one of the other things you're going to want to know about the piano is that from the lower end of the piano, right out to the left, these are lower pitches. And as we move to the right, we end up at higher pitches. So very often you'll see that the left hand would be playing these low notes down here, and the right hand would be playing these higher notes. And of course, it's not necessarily always the case. You'll see a lot of instances where pianists cross their hands for various reasons. So the biggest point I want to make to you today is that you're looking at all of the notes. There are only 12 different notes in Western music. And I mean, we could count these just as I showed here, right? There's 5 notes here, and there's 7 right here. 5 and 7 is 12. And they just repeat over and over and over. So every popular song you've ever heard in the Western tradition, because of course world musics have a slightly different pitch arrangement, Every song you've ever heard is just a different combination of these notes. And it's kind of astounding when you consider the wide variety that exists when it comes to music. We are going to look first at a very specific set of these notes. I'm going to look at from C to this next C. So all of these white notes, again, not including those black notes. So I'm going to play this for you. Might sound familiar. Oh, I'll turn my keyboard on. Oh my goodness. So from C to C sounds like this. I can play it backwards, of course. So you might have heard the sequence of syllables, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and do. And that's exactly what you just heard. This is the most basic version of a scale. So a scale is, by definition, a series of notes, ascending or descending, that have some specific relationship with one another. So this one in particular, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, is probably the fundamental kind of organizing principle of all these different, of all the notes. And this is going to be the structure that allows us to reference other types of sounds. And here, let me go ahead and write these out here. You know what? Let's do that like this. So I said from C to C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that is do, re, mi. Let me zoom in a little bit here for you. Fa, sol, la, ti, and do again. So we can actually number these as well, which is going to be one of the things that helps us to reference things in the future. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me make this a little thinner. Go. 7, and so by the time we get back to C, really we're just talking about 1 again. But we could just label that as an 8. And this is actually one of the terms that's going to be useful to us. The fact that by the time I get to the next same note, right, from C to C or from D to D, whatever, this is something you'll hear referenced as an octave. And of course, this has that root oct, like an octagon, right, an 8-sided figure. And again, that is just referring to the fact, like if I was talking about this F here, and I wanted to refer to the next adjacent F, a higher octave, one octave higher than my starting F, that's where that term comes from. So this I've called a major, well, I haven't called it major yet. I'm going to call it a major scale now. Major scale.